הם שומרים עלינו. הם מגנים עלינו. הם עוזרים לנו בעיתות מצוקה. אבל הורסים אותם מבפנים.
Last year saw more Army suicides than any year on record.
יום.
Our son was just one of thousands of veterans that this country has lost to suicide.
אחרי יום.
Only to die here at home in their sleep.
אחרי יום.
He then used a pistol to take his own life.
יש אויב סמוי בפעולה.
It's got to stop.
והוא מסתתר לאור יום. האויב הכי מסוכן הוא האויב שלעולם לא תחשוד בו. ב-18 ביוני 1940. הפסיכיאטר ותת האלוף ג'יי אריס פנה אל באי הכנס השנתי של המועצה הלאומית להיגיינה נפשית עם תוכנית אסטרטגית עבור הפסיכיאטריה.
We must aim to make it permeate every educational activity in our national life. Public life, politics, and industry should all of them be within our sphere of influence.
אבל כדי לממש את מטרתם, הפסיכיאטרים היו זקוקים לשדה הניסויים המושלם. ללא מגבלת תקציב, שיוכל לגדול ולגדול.
It's all about money. Billions of dollars.
It's our tax money.
שדה ניסויים עם הספקה אינסופית של משאבי אנוש.
More people than any other organization in America.
These troops are the guinea pigs.
They're being experimented on.
שדה ניסויים שבו חייבים לציית לכל פקודה, בלי לשאול שאלות.
They have to obey those orders.
You don't have an option. I'm legally obligated.
ושדה ניסויים בו כל נזק נלווה מתויג כחסוי.
This story has been censored every step of the way.
תת-אלוף ריס ידע היכן למצוא אותו.
The Army and the other fighting services form rather unique experimental groups, since they are complete communities. And it is possible to arrange experiments in a way that would be very difficult in civilian life.
זו הייתה טקטיקה ממולחת, במיוחד כשזו יוצגה תחת המסווה של עזרה.
And now the soldier was sick, and unless we do something for him, he may remain sick for an indefinite period of time. Gentlemen, you are not requested to treat these patients. You are directed to do so.
הפסיכיאטרים עברו דרך ארוכה. רק 20 שנה לפני כן הם כמעט שלא היו ידועים בעולם הצבאי.
It wasn't until World War I that they came out of the asylums and sort of worked their way into the military. It was a very slow, very gradual insertion.
איטית והדרגתית מהסיבה הפשוטה שלא בטחו בפסיכיאטרים. והייתה לכך סיבה טובה. הטיפולים שלהם מעולם לא היו ידועים כמדעיים. למעשה, רבים מההליכים הניסיוניים שלהם יתויגו מאוחר יותר כעינויים.
One of the first uses of psychiatric treatment actually goes back to World War I when it was used on German soldiers who were deserting and trying to leave the front because of the horrors of the trench warfare on the Western Front.
הטיפול הזה כונה ריפוי קאופמן על שם ממציאו, אבל רק מעטים יקראו לו תרפיוטי. החייל מוכה הטראומה חובר לזרם חשמלי שהוגבר בהדרגה עד שהוא לא יכול היה לסבול יותר. תוך כדי כך, העוסק במקצוע הצליף פה סוגסטיות היפנוטיות.
Diese Kaufmann-Therapie wurde von den Psychiatern als Heiltherapie angewandt und eingeführt. Für die Soldaten war das alles andere als Heilung, weil es ja ein Schmerz war, der ihnen zugefügt wurde an den Gliedmaßen. Und so war wohl der wahre Grund, warum die Soldaten dann wieder an die Front gingen, nämlich, dass sie diese Schmerzen nicht mehr aushalten konnten und lieber sich in Kampfeinsatz wagten, als in der Klinik dauernd Schmerzen zu ertragen.
אבל הכאב שסבלו החיילים לא מנע מהפסיכיאטרים להמשיך את הניסויים שלהם במלחמת העולם השנייה. וממש כמו קודם, מטרתם לא הייתה לעזור לחולים להתגבר על טראומות המלחמה.
Zum einen war man von Seiten der Wehrmedizin im Zweiten Weltkrieg bestrebt, den Patienten noch schneller, als dies im Ersten Weltkrieg gelungen war, wieder an die Front zurückzuschicken. Das war der erste und sozusagen das entscheidende Ziel, das die Kriegspsychiatrie im Zweiten Weltkrieg hatte.
בכל רחבי העולם, פסיכיאטרים השתמשו במלחמות כהזדמנות לעריכת ניסויים מאוד מסוכנים על חיילים שלא הייתה להם מילה בנושא. חלקם קיבלו הלם חשמלי, הכניסו אחרים לתרדמת עמוקה, ומילאו אותם בעוד סמים משני תודעה. וככל שהם חדרו עמוק יותר ויותר, הם נעשו מעורבים בגיוסים לצבא, באימונים, במשמעת, במצב הרוח, הם אפילו נתנו את חוות דעתם בבחירת קצינים.
Then Poole is an odd sort of man. In civilian life he was very badly adjusted. In the personal sense, that is, he just couldn't mix, couldn't make friends.
ב-1943 הפסיכיאטרים חדרו כל כך עמוק לצבא האמריקאי, שהפסיכיאטר הראשי של הצי התרברב.
Psychiatry now has a place in every step of the Navy man's career, from his induction to his eventual separation from the service.
It is because of the military that psychiatrists, they became important. You know, they're wearing a uniform now, and they've got the epaulets, and, you know, they've got some power because of the military. The military gave them that.
הקב"ן הראשי של צבא ארצות הברית, תת-אלוף ויליאם מנינגר, אף כתב מדריך המונה את כל הבעיות הנפשיות שהוא חשב שיכולות להיות לחיילים. אבל לא היו בדיקות דם, לא צילומי רנטגן, שום דבר לא נבדק במיקרוסקופ, רק חוות דעת. עדויות מדעיות? לא המפקד. אבל זה רק עזר לפסיכיאטריה. אחרי הכל, המדריך הצבאי של מנינגר סיפק נופח לגיטימי, משהו שהם יכולים להשתמש בו לאבחון וטיפול ביותר אנשי צבא. השימוש במדריך הצבאי היה כה נפוץ, שהוא מאוחר יותר הפך לבסיס של התנ"ך הפסיכיאטרי, המדריך לאבחון וסטטיסטיקה למחלות נפש, ה-DSM. בגלל ההשפעה של אנשים כמו מנינגר, באמצע מלחמת העולם השנייה, צבאות ברחבי העולם האמינו לטענות הפסיכיאטרים שהם המומחים לבריאות הנפש. ומסיבה זו, ניתנה לפסיכיאטרים יד חופשית לערוך ניסויים בסמים על מספר רב יותר של חיילים.
The drugs of choice are the barbiturates. You will note that in combat exhaustion, massive doses of these drugs are needed in therapy.
During the Second World War, both Americans and Germans experimented with stimulants because everybody thought, well, this is great, and, you know, it helps you focus, it keeps you awake.
אחד הסמים הללו היה פרוויטין, שניתן לחיילים גרמנים כדי להפחית עכבות ולהגביר אגרסיביות.
Man kann sagen, dass dieser Feldzug durchaus Pervitin getränkt war, was die Wehrmachtssoldaten betrifft. Die Wehrmachtssoldaten waren für ihre Gegner unfassbar fit, sie waren unfassbar wach, sie hielten sehr, sehr lange durch, sie waren furchtlos, sie waren aggressiv und wirkten vor allem auf die Gegner wie aufgezogen.
Et il a fallu à peu près 18 mois pour que les accidents apparaissent en nombre considérable, c'est-à-dire des jeunes soldats qui brutalement se conduisaient comme des bêtes féroces, tiraient sur tout ce qui bougeait, sur les civils et sur leurs propres compatriotes. Et les accidents, les imprudences au pilotage d'avions, au pilotage de chars ont été telles que l'armée allemande a interdit l'utilisation de ces drogues à partir du milieu de l'année 42 ou 43. Et l'armée anglaise a vécu la même expérience.
סמי מרץ היו גם בשימוש היפנים. הם נתנו ללוחמים שלהם אומץ מיידי, אבל שילמו מחיר. החייל בתמונה הזו היה טייס טורפדו במלחמת העולם השנייה.
海軍の中の特攻隊員ということで、人間魚雷で有名な回天というものの搭乗員として訓練を受け、
המשימה, להיכנס לתוך טורפדו מאויש שהתפוצץ באופן ידני בהתקרבו אל ספינת אויב.
海軍の中ではね、とにかく先行艇部隊、先行艇による特攻を、とにかく成功させるためにということで、海軍ぐるみでっていうかね、でもってとにかく搭乗員たちにアンフェタミンを投与させて作戦行動を成功させるということがもう行われてたということですね。
למרות שהוא שרד את המלחמה, חייו של אדם זה נהרסו.
で実際に私の叔父も、帰ってきて、復員してきてからそういった形で今度メタンフェタミンヒロポン中毒になって、で今度ヒロポンが禁止されたわけですよね。今度は何になってか、もうアルコール、もう本当にアルコールはひどかったです。私も叔父が叔母にね本当に暴力を振るうシーンっていうのは何度も見てますし、だから彼自身も実際に、自殺を3度図って。
החל משנות ה-50 ועד שנות ה-70, פסיכיאטרים במדינות כמו בריטניה, ארצות הברית וברית המועצות המשיכו להשתמש בצבאות שלהם כשדות ניסויים כדי לערוך מגוון ניסויים חדשים ממחסן הנשק שלהם. פסיכיאטרים צבאיים אמריקאים השתמשו בחיילים לניסויים ב-LSD.
The squad, composed of volunteers for the test, responded like well-trained soldiers, immediately and without question. The squad, all except the drill sergeant, now drugged with LSD. After a few minutes, the men found it difficult to obey orders.
למרות שהפסיכיאטרים הבריטים היו מודעים לסכנות של הסם הזה, הם המשיכו עם הניסויים ב-LSD, והפעם עם חיילי הקומנדו הימי.
Unknown to the troops, the drug was added to the water on the second day. At 11:40, the first effects of the drug make their appearance. The men no longer take cover, they relax and begin to giggle. 70 minutes after the administration of the drug, with one man climbing a tree, the troop commander gives up, saying, "I cannot do anything about this. I cannot control the men and I can take no action myself. I am wiped out as an attacking force."
רק אלוהים יודע מה הפסיכיאטרים הסובייטיים נתנו לחיילים.
В советской армии я служил поваром, и обычно перед обедом приходил доктор, врач, и давал нам пакетик, чтобы мы сыпанули в борщ или там в кашу и размешали. Но мы обычно говорили, что это такое. Это нормально, это витамины. Но что это такое, я не знаю. Тем более, что мы, повара, обычно свою долю вынимали из котла до того, как приходил доктор.
במהלך השנים המשיכו לתת לחיילים תרופות פסיכיאטריות לשימושים שמעולם לא נחקרו או אושרו. זה היה ניסוי אחד גדול.
In the Falklands campaign, air crew were given uppers and downers so that their flight duty rotas could be maximized.
We've gotten reports that the Gulf War II pilots do take amphetamines, they do take dexedrine, and that at the nighttime they're given Ambien to bring them down so they can sleep. So they're continuously on this up and down kind of scenario.
Certainly in the Iraq, Afghanistan wars, psychiatry has played a huge role, huge.
פסיכיאטריה מקובלת עכשיו בתור חלק מהצבא ברחבי העולם. נאמר לנו שעלינו לבטוח בפסיכיאטריה, שהם הסמכות. אבל ישנה רק בעיה אחת, מצב העניינים לא השתפר, או רק החמיר.
I spent almost 26 years on active duty in the Marine Corps. I retired with the grade of Brigadier General.
I was an Army captain in the aviation branch.
I was a Staff Sergeant E5 in the United States Air Force.
I was in the United States Marine Corps from 2007 to 2011.
Florida Army National Guard.
31st Engineering Battalion.
I was in aviation and military intelligence.
Battlefield intelligence analyst.
I was a U.S. Navy fighter pilot.
Combat medic with an LPN license. So my nomenclature would be a 68 Whiskey Mike 6.
I got out as a sergeant, non-commissioned officer, this past March. I didn't see the emergence of psychiatry in the Army up until I suffered my own injury. And then it was like, it was a flood. It was a flood of doctors and it was a flood of meds.
הלחץ על החיילים היום הוא אותו הלחץ כפי שהיה בעבר. יום עבודה ארוך, משימות קשות, תקופות ממושכות של פרידה מהמשפחה והחברים. וכאשר הולמות בהם בעיות רגשיות ונפשיות, אין כל ספק בממשות שלהם. אבל לא חשוב לאן חיילים פונים בבקשת עזרה, בצבא של היום הם לרוב ימצאו את עצמם בידיו של פסיכיאטר.
You can go to a chaplain, and a chaplain is just somebody that you can talk to. But I think part of the issue is that a chaplain is kind of obligated to route you straight to a psychiatrist if you mention any key words, you know? Like, yeah, I have been stressed out or something like that.
If you tell a therapist you're depressed, they're going to send you to a psychiatrist. It's going to happen. It's just how it works.
So they'll make a real quick decision on you have a problem or what the problem might be within just minutes. So 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, if you're lucky, 45 minutes in the office.
דרך הפעולה הסטנדרטית של הפסיכיאטר היא קודם כל להבחן אותך עם הפרעה נפשית. אולי הוא יגיד לך שיש לך חוסר איזון כימי במוח, למרות שהוא לא עשה שום בדיקות להוכיח את זה. והוא גם לעולם לא יעשה, בגלל שאין שום בדיקות. לאמיתו של דבר, אין שום בדיקות לאף אחת ממאות מחלות הנפש הרשומות במדריך לאבחון וסטטיסטיקה של הפסיכיאטריה.
Psychiatry, especially, has no objective means of making any diagnosis. In general medicine, at least you have x-rays and blood tests to go on, and so that's the big dilemma faced by psychiatry. They have zero ability to diagnose, so they have zero ability to treat.
No physical abnormality has ever been found. So there is no physical abnormality to demonstrate by an MRI, a CT, an EEG. It's another fraud, pure and simple. It's another fraud.
אז פסיכיאטרים מאבחנים שיש לך מחלת מוח, דברים פיזיים שהם לא בסדר במוח שלך, שהם לא יכולים אפילו להוכיח את קיומם.
There were no medical tests of any kind. There were no blood tests. Nothing that I could tell that was scientific in any way or medical in any way.
If somebody suggests that you have a disorder, a disease or something, there should be some sort of objective test. It's not unreasonable to ask for it. It's not unreasonable to insist on it.
אבל לא תקבל את זה מהפסיכיאטרים, רק את הדעות שלהם, והם לא יתביישו לתת אותן.
There are troops that are seeing psychiatrists who are automatically, before they even open up their mouth, being diagnosed just because of the way how they look.
The psychiatrist told me that I would never amount to anything in the military again because of the emotional trauma I experienced and my current, at the time, my depression levels, my stress, my anxiety. I was never going to accomplish anything in the military. I would never be a good soldier again. And the only viable option that the military saw was to discharge me.
When a psychiatrist says your life is not worth anything because it's been all some sort of psychosis or some sort of trauma event, or you've got this disease or that, or some brain chemical or whatever, a soldier's life turns into nothing.
כל שנה אלפי גברים ונשים במדים מאובחנים עם מחלת נפש, לפעמים אפילו 2 או 3. זה יצא משליטה ברמה כזאת שהפנטגון של ארצות הברית מוציא $2 מיליארד בשנה רק על בריאות הנפש. ותקציב בריאות הנפש של המשרד לענייני חיילים משוחררים, ה-VA, יצא מכלל שליטה. זינק מסכום של פחות $3 מיליארד ב-2007 לכמעט $7 מיליארד ב-2014. זו הוצאת כסף עצומה על מקצוע שאינו יכול אפילו למצוא הוכחה למחלות המוח שלו עם מיקרוסקופ. לא שזה משנה לפסיכיאטרים. האבחון הוא רק הצעד הראשון, למעשה תירוץ, כדי לתת לך טיפולים מאוד מסוכנים.
I joined the Navy when I was 17, and I retired. I was medically discharged, I should say, from the SEAL teams. I served my country with America's best in a time of war, and I had the honor of leading them. But I did lose, you know, my swim buddy, which is the guy you go through SEAL training with. And that gave me a survivor's guilt that I can't begin to describe. And, you know, I make it through combat in multiple firefights and nothing. I got blown up by an IED, it broke my neck, you know, and I didn't know it at the time. But I lived with that for like 5 years, make it through all of that. And I come back and they almost kill me with pills.
התוצאה הכמעט בלתי נמנעת מאבחון פסיכיאטרי היא מתן של מרשם לתרופות פסיכיאטריות. פסיכיאטרים עושים מעט מאוד מעבר לזה, והם נותנים המון מרשמים. מ-2005 ל-2011, משרד ההגנה של ארצות הברית הגדיל כמעט פי 7 את מתן המרשמים לתרופות פסיכיאטריות. זה פי 30 מהר יותר ממרשמים לאזרחים. ואין כל הבדל בדחיפת התרופות לחיילים המשוחררים.
We get this guy from the Veterans, I think the Veterans Administration or something like that. And he's basically telling you, if you are depressed, if you do something erratic, it's a disease. I mean, this guy's literally the loudest guy in the entire briefing. You know, very just in your face about it. And he's just basically saying, you know, if you're doing anything other than what you normally do, you have a disease and you need to be put on the system, you need drugs.
We can control it with medication. And then right after that, they're going to get prescribed whatever drug the psychiatrist seems fit rather than just being able to talk to somebody.
No therapy, no lifestyle change. It's a straight line of how they educate these doctors in pharmacology, a symptom to a drug.
לפסיכיאטרים אין שמץ של מושג מה התרופות הללו עושות לגוף האדם. אבל כשזה מגיע לחלוקה שלהם, זה ממש לא משנה.
My older brother got out of the Marine Corps, like I said, about a year ago. And when he went to the VA hospital to make his disability claim and talk to him, he told him that he had trouble sleeping. And he didn't tell me what they gave him, but he basically said they gave him a big bag of happy pills.
So I came home on R&R from Iraq and got severely depressed. And they went and told me to go see Don-based psychologist, which then they prescribed me meds.
He basically told me what was wrong with me and prescribed me with Zoloft, and that was pretty much it.
I've been on Ambien, Seroquel, Paxil. That was one of the big ones. A very dangerous drug that I just think is very harmful called Abilify. It kind of puts whatever meds you're on steroids.
Wellbutrin, Zoloft, modafinil, methylphenidate, trazodone, Prazosin, and Ambien.
Starts out with Dexedrine,
Vibrid,
Dalmane,
Citalopram,
Thorazine,
Citalopram,
Prozac, and effects are at the same time.
Stelazine,
Zoloft,
Compazine,
Seroquel,
Cogentin,
Abilify,
Nodular,
Wellbutrin,
IV-Amytal,
Depakote,
Artane,
Xanax,
Haloperidol or Haldol,
Klonopin,
Diazepam,
Adderall,
and Librium.
5 milligrams to 300.
300 milligrams.
1,200 milligrams of lithium a day.
Most individuals who would be given these drugs have no clue what the drug is, really, or what it can do to the mind, really. They just don't know. So it's a blind date. And sometimes it turns out to be kind of an ugly one.
סימום הצבא הוא מוגזם מעל ומעבר, במיוחד בארצות הברית. בסך הכל, במהלך 10 השנים האחרונות, ממשלת ארצות הברית הוציאה יותר מ$4.5 מיליארד רק על מתן תרופות לחיילים ולחיילים משוחררים. למעשה, ב-2011 הפנטגון הוציא יותר על גלולות, זריקות וחיסונים מאשר על הליקופטרים בלק הוק, טנקי אייברמס, הרקולסים C-130, מטוסי מטען וטילי פטריוט גם יחד.
The use of both psychiatry and psychotropic drugs has just ballooned in the U.S. military.
Every soldier that I've talked to, every time they've seen a psychiatrist, they would prescribe them some kind of psychotropic drug right off the bat.
I would say 60 to 70% of the soldiers we saw in our center were on medication.
Let me give you an example. I was on a committee, a scholarship committee for veterans at a college, and they invited the VA psychiatrist to come in to give a talk about post-traumatic stress disorder. But at the very end, I raised my hand, I said, how many of your veterans that you see do you medicate? And initially he tried to skirt the answer. He said, I see the most difficult. And I said, we all see the most difficult. How many do you medicate? 98%. It's criminal.
ובשאר העולם זה לא הרבה יותר טוב.
I deal a lot with a lot of our soldiers within our NATO brothers and sisters. Canada, New Zealand, Australia, UK, Germany, France, Belgium, and even soldiers down in Italy and even in Spain. Each and every one of them have complained about the issues dealing with psychotropic drugs with them.
I was stationed in Germany for a while. I was in Kosovo for a while. And they had talked about that, yeah, when they see the psychiatrist, they do give them psychotropic drugs. So it seems like it's a worldwide problem.
A lot of our veterans have told us that when they went for help whilst they were still serving, they were then prescribed medication. It didn't help.
Quand on envoie un patient chez un psychiatre, il ressort directement avec des molécules chimiques. Et ça, on commence à avoir les effets secondaires et on commence à avoir les problèmes.
І справді, психіатри давали військовослужбовцям небезпечні наркотики, при цьому знаючи, що військовослужбовці мають в руках небезпечну зброю.
Och någonstans så finns det ju någon drivande orsak till att vi skriver ut mer och mer piller. Men vi får ju inte det förväntade resultatet.
אבל לא משנה איזו מדינה, זהו הצבא. ובצבא, לחיילים אין ברירה אלא לציית לפקודות.
When I'm wearing this uniform, if I'm ordered to see a psychiatrist, I have to go to see a psychiatrist. If I'm not in this uniform, I can tell them no.
The suggestion to go see the psychiatrist came across as a heavy recommendation. It wasn't a direct order, but it was, this is something you should go do. It's something that needs to be handled. You should go do this.
ואז מגיע הלחץ שעליך לקחת את התרופות.
I actually asked my commander that. I said, do I have to take these drugs is this an order? And they all just stared at me, wouldn't give me a no or a yes. Implied that I'm supposed to take this. If I would have refused, I probably would have lost my rank or lost opportunities in the military because I wasn't taking care of the property of the military, which was my body.
Most of the troops that I talked with did not want to take the psychiatric drugs, did not want them, did not need them, and rebelled at having to take them. But they were told that if you don't take these drugs, you can't get your compensation and you can't get any more VA treatment if you deny the drug usage. So they did.
I have heard that military personnel have been ordered to take these drugs. My response to that is, that's an illegal order, and I had that verified by a judge advocate general right here in Washington, D.C. It's illegal to demand that. If a psychologist tells you that you have to take it or you're going to lose your benefits, you need to report that psychologist to the proper authorities.
באופן רשמי, 1 מתוך 6 אנשי צבא אמריקאים לוקח תרופה פסיכיאטרית אחת לפחות. אבל העניין הוא כזה. על פי הוועדה לשירותי ביטחון בסנאט האמריקאי, איש לא יודע כמה סמים ניתנים לחיילים באזורי החזית. אין אפילו עקבות של מסמכים, אין מרשמים, פשוט מחלקים אותם. העובדה היא שרמת הסימום הפסיכיאטרי בצבא היא ככל הנראה הרבה יותר גבוהה. במיוחד כשכל כך הרבה מהם קשרים לשילוב הפסיכיאטרי הגדול מכולם של אבחון, סימום.
I was in the Army, and when I got out I was corporal. And then I went back as a contractor for the Department of the Army. My original purpose was definitely get involved, serve my country, and then pursue it from that point forward. I personally had been deployed to Iraq for just about a year, and having gone back to Europe, I was having trouble sleeping, and having some issues just adjusting back to this, different lifestyle after having been shot at, nearly blown to pieces, so many times, to this. Now I can just go down the road and get a pizza. And one of my officers recommended I go see a psychiatrist. Within 10 minutes it was, so you're probably bipolar, most likely ADD, and PTSD.
ההשפעות הנראות לעין של מתח קרב הוזכרו כבר על ידי סופרים קדמונים כמו הומר והרודוטוס. הצרפתים קוראים לזה מאל דו פאי, הגרמנים היימווה. בספרד זה היה אסטר רוטו. איך שלא קראו לזה, צבאות לאורך הדורות הכירו בכך שלפעמים זוועות המלחמה יכולות להיות מעמסה כבדה מנשוא לחייל. נהוג היה להתייחס לכך כתגובה עצבנית, חלק צפוי מהקרב. אבל פסיכיאטרים היום מתייגים זאת כתפקוד לקוי של המוח, שהחל את חייו ב-1980 כהפרעת דחק פוסט-טראומטית, PTSD.
This war isn't any different than any other than guys coming back with shell shock, battle fatigue or combat fatigue, and now they're calling it post-traumatic stress disorder. It's been around forever.
וכמו ההפרעות האחרות שלהם, היא לא נמצאה על ידי בדיקות מדעיות, אלא על ידי שדלנות של פסיכיאטרים, והכניסו אותה למדריך לאבחון וסטטיסטיקה בעקבות הצבעה. הצביעו עליה, פשוטו כמשמעו. היום זה האבחון הכי נפוץ של הפסיכיאטרים הצבאיים, וזה הופץ במהירות אל העולם האזרחי.
The goal is to combat post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD.
Helping veterans with PTSD.
A soldier's post-traumatic stress disorder.
I was diagnosed with PTSD.
PTSD.
How many times do you hear PTSD in the media now? People really don't understand it, I don't think, and we're just trying to assign a label to people, our soldiers and sailors that are coming back from these very horrific events that they're being witness to.
People who suffer from post-traumatic stress are reacting to a traumatic event in a normal fashion. What we believe is that the military is treating veterans in particular with post-traumatic stress as though they have a mental illness. We don't believe they have a mental illness. We believe that they're wounded and what they need is healing.
In PTSD, psychiatry has created a disease. They speak of it as a disease just as they speak of generalized anxiety disorder and clinical depression as diseases, but none of them are actual diseases.
If someone shows up in my practice and they say a psychiatrist or other doctors diagnosed me with post-traumatic stress disorder, I would actually ask the patient, okay, what tests were done to establish that diagnosis? And they'll think about it and they'll realize that nothing was done. They just got the opinion of whoever the practitioner was.
Certainly there is stress that goes along with combat. When you put a soldier into an environment where he's not getting sleep, he's being shot at, friends around him are getting hurt or dying, that's going to cause some bad side effects. Sure, those phenomena exist, but that doesn't then equate to, well, let's drug him.
אין שום דבר מזויף בזוועות של הלם קרב. אבל שהפסיכיאטריה תמציא מחלה ותגדיר אותה במונחים רפואיים, תפקוד לקוי של המוח כדי לשכנע אותך לקבל את הטיפול המדומה שלהם, ואז ממשיכים יותר ויותר להרחיב את ההגדרה שלה.
What qualifies for PTSD has recently been downgraded, but they have directives that come out that say, well, now we're going to suggest that everybody who's, been in a war zone could possibly, maybe. And so with that, anybody qualifies.
What I saw with the new privates coming in is they were just out of basic training and they were given psych drugs for PTSD, for being in basic training for 9 weeks.
I was diagnosed with PTSD because I came back and I was a little jittery. And it's just, I guess they said that I had PTSD from that when it was just, I was still kind of trying to assimilate back into the scene of not being in combat, of not being over.
The determination that I had PTSD was almost made before I even walked into the office.
They told me that it was clear that I had post-traumatic stress disorder and that I needed medication to fix it.
Nearly every soldier in my company was diagnosed with PTSD. Nearly every soldier.
ישנם 175 שילובי סימפטומים שונים שהפסיכיאטרי יכול להשתמש כדי לאבחן אותך עם PTSD. לכן זה לא מפתיע ש37% מיוצאי המלחמות האחרונות מקבלים טיפול ל-PTSD. לאחר שהם תויגו, ל-80% יינתנו תרופות פסיכיאטריות. ומתוך כל החיילים שניתנו להם תרופות, ל-89% ניתנו נוגדי דיכאון, ול-34% ניתנו תרופות אנטי-פסיכוטיות חזקות. אפילו אחרי שאחד הפסיכיאטרים המובילים בעולם בנושא ה-PTSD ערך מחקר על תרופות אנטי-פסיכוטיות והודה שהן לא עובדות.
Just because a medication can be widely prescribed doesn't mean necessarily that it's really helpful for overall for the symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder.
אם הפסיכיאטרים היו טורחים לעשות בדיקות רפואיות סטנדרטיות, היה סיכוי שהם ימצאו בעיה גופנית. משהו שמתייגים כ-PTSD, אבל הוא למעשה פגיעה גופנית שאפשר לאמת אותה על ידי מיפוי מוח. זה נקרא פגיעת מוח טראומטית, או TBI, והערכה היא ש-320,000 חיילים סובלים ממנו.
Traumatic brain injury is an injury to the brain itself, either caused by a concussive blast or a closed head wound. There's some difficulty determining between traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress because the symptoms tend to mirror each other. Inability to focus, short-term memory loss, difficulty with rage or anger.
You're talking about a physical injury, an actual brain injury, as opposed to a mental health, a condition. You know, it's the two absolutely, totally separate things.
I'm handling a Gulf vet who's got traumatic brain injuries. He's labelled with PTSD, and he's got a lump of shrapnel in his head. You know? So, hang on, you don't get lumps of shrapnel flying into your head and embedding in your skull do not leave you with no effect on the brain. The brain's going to take a real hammering from that sort of thing.
כמובן שרוב הפסיכיאטרים לא יזהו TBI, בגלל שהם לא בודקים את זה. במקום זאת, כשהבעיה האמיתית מחריפה, הם מסווים את כל זה עם תרופות, שיכולות להחריף את העניינים הרבה יותר.
I think my main goal why I joined the military was, the first thing is to get money for college. And then all my friends were going in and they were having a blast with it, and I just really wanted to do something with my life and not just stay here in a small town and not do anything. I served in 2 branches of the military. I served in the Marine Corps and also the Army, and got out as a specialist also at E4. When I was in the Marine Corps, I never went and saw a psychologist, but when I was in the Army, they told me I had to go see one. At that point, he diagnosed me with PTSD and prescribed me Prozac and Wellbutrin in Iraq, still carrying a weapon, still in the combat zone. The psychologist said that my anxiety and depression, everything, like stuff like that, should actually go away. And actually it did not, it got worse.
החיים של חייל הם תובעניים. אתה מתאמן להיות ערני, החלטי ומרוכז, ובכושר גופני ונפשי מעולים. זה הכרחי. אבל תרופות פסיכיאטריות יכולות להפוך אותך לבלתי כשיר לקרב. הפסיכיאטרים יודעים את זה, אבל הם עדיין טוענים שהן תרפיוטיות. המציאות היא כזאת.
All psychiatric meds are mind-altering drugs. People don't put that together, but they're mind-altering, and they have side effects, disaster side effects.
One of the most significant problems about every psychotropic drug that I can think of, the stimulants, the tranquilizers, antipsychotics, mood modulators, are unpredictable. I can give the same drug to 20 different men, and they'll have 10 different reactions to it.
איש לא יודע, אפילו לא האדם שנתן אותה במרשם, מה תגרום התרופה הפסיכיאטרית. כל אחת מהן שונה, ולכל אחת רשימה ארוכה של תופעות לוואי הכתובות באותיות הקטנות על עלון השימוש.
My friends that take the drugs that I'm prescribed have very bad balance, a terrible memory. They have difficult talking clearly, speaking clearly to each other.
Their reaction times are very slow, and they have a hard time concentrating.
It pretty much just erased all feelings that I had. So I was just there.
A lack of motivation, really. I just stopped caring.
I was constantly demotivated, very worn down all the time. I was constantly sleepy, like not tired, just sleepy. I could stop doing something and instantly fall asleep.
1 minute you can be on patrol, next minute you'd be asleep. That's what those pills do to you. They make you tired.
I would get headaches, but it's not like a normal headache. It would be like sharp pains just zapping through my head.
My anxiety level was through the roof. I had heart problems. I put on 20 to 25 kilos of extra weight.
I probably gained 40 pounds over the course of that period of time.
I was up to almost 300 pounds. I was in metabolic syndrome. My body my adrenal system had completely shut down. My muscles had seemingly turned to water, and I could not lose weight for anything.
I can't ever think of anybody who's ever said, I feel better. This has helped me. I can't honestly think of anybody who's ever said that to me. And I've seen and talked to a lot of veterans in my time.
These are supposed to be the finest, most elite soldiers, physical combat machines, and they're being given something that's harming them, that's destroying not only their body physically, but also their minds mentally.
פסיכיאטרים יגידו לך שהתועלת של התרופות שלהם עולה על הסיכונים. זאת שטות ללא כל אימות מדעי. מחקרים נרחבים מוכיחים שתרופות פסיכיאטריות כמו נוגדי דיכאון לא פועלות טוב יותר מגלולת סוכר דמה. אבל חלק מתופעות הלוואי של התרופות לא רק מזיקות, הן קטלניות. בנוסף לכל תופעות הלוואי האיומות הנגרמות מהתרופות הפסיכיאטריות, יש את העובדה המוזרה מכל. הן לא מרפאות שום דבר. אז מה הן כן עושות? הן משנות את ההתנהגות שלך על ידי המתת הרגשות שלך. זה לא רק מונע ממישהו לפתור דברים, אלא גורם לו להיות חסר תחושה לסובב אותו. אפילו יש לכך שם, דפרסונליזציה.
I've had patients who've been given very large doses of psychoactive drugs over a period of about a year and basically destroyed their sense of self.
They don't care almost about anything. You could go up to someone and start yelling at them, and if they're on the large enough cocktail, they won't do anything. They become almost drones.
So they're literally lobotomizing our soldiers with these drugs. I'm sorry. I'm just being very direct and honest with my experience of over 200 injured warriors. It's almost like being in a mental hospital with lobotomized patients. I'm sorry. It's just awful.
והדפרסונליזציה נעשית ממש מסוכנת כשהתרופות יוצרות השפעת לוואי שכיחה אחרת.
If someone is numbed like that, they're less likely to be concerned about their consequences of their behavior and might resort then to impulsive actions, violent actions.
Some of the effects of the drugs that we're aware of, that the veterans we've dealt with have come across, have been things like more anxiety, more anger.
They're having all these fits of anger, aggression, they're getting in fights with their significant other.
And of course what this has led to is just a really horrendous number of domestic shootings, domestic beatings, child, wife abuse.
המספרים מעידים על כך. מאז 2006, מספר פשעי המין האלימים ומקרי ההתעללות במשפחה בקרב אנשי צבא גדלו ביותר מ-30%, וההתעללות בילדים ב-43%. וכל זה במקביל לעלייה מרקיעת השחקים במתן תרופות פסיכיאטריות לחיילים. ואז ישנם מקרים שבהם חייל תחת השפעת התרופות הפסיכיאטריות מאבד שליטה לחלוטין.
This one particular morning, the soldier was in our unit, and most of the soldiers in our unit are on some type of medication. And she was waiting for the soldier. And when she walked in, he was locking and loading his weapon. And she asked him, "What are you doing?" And he looked at her, he said, "I don't know." And she said, "You were locking and loading," which means he's putting his ammo in his weapon. And she asked him, she said, "What were you going to do?" He said, "I don't know if I was just going to shoot myself or shoot up everybody in this building, and then myself." And we were there.
11 במאי 2009. סמל ג'ון ראסל פתח באש במרפאה הצבאית לטיפול בלחץ בבגדד. הוא הרג 2 קצינים ו3 חוגרים. יום לפני כן, הפסיכיאטר נתן לו נוגדי דיכאון. 11 במרץ 2012. בכפר מרוחק באפגניסטן, סמל ראשון רוברט ביילס רצח 16 איש. 9 מהם ילדים. לפני מסע הרצח שלו, ביילס הסניף את הסם הפסיכיאטרי ווליום בזמן שהוא שתה אלכוהול. 16 בספטמבר 2013. חייל משוחרר מהצי ארן אלקסיס נסע רובה ציד למספנת חיל הים בוושינגטון די.סי, ושם הרג 12 איש בדם קר. על פי הדוחות, לאלקסיס ניתנה טרזודיל, תרופה נוגדת דיכאון.
He talked about it. He said he went to the VA and they would give him some medicine.
אלו רק מקרים אחדים מיני רבים שהיו בידיהם של אנשי מקצוע בריאות הנפש זמן קצר לפני ביצוע מעשי אלימות מזעזעים. טוראי ראשון דיוויד לורנס שרצח מפקד טליבן בתאו בכלא כשהוא לקח זולופט וטרזודיל. טרנס סטיילר, נחת לשעבר שירה בשני חבריו לעבודה ואז בעצמו בסופרמרקט בניו ג'רזי. הוא הובחן עם דיכאון עמוק ולקח פרוזק. ואדי ריי בראות' שרצח איש קומנדו ימי בעל עיטורים רבים. 4 ימים קודם לכן הוא שוחרר מבית החולים לחולי נפש, שם הוא קיבל טיפול ל-PTSD.
Drugs and weapons do not mix. Okay, it's a recipe for disaster all by itself.
They're seeing things different. Their mind has been altered. Their brain has been altered. Their judgment and reasoning is not what it would have been without these medications.
It's the mind that makes the decision of when to shoot and what to shoot. It's the mind. If you alter the mind and you imbalance the mind, which is what psychiatric drugs do, you change the results of who or what gets shot on the battlefield or at home after the battle is over.
תרופות פסיכיאטריות גורמות לאלימות לא רק אצל חיילים. הן מסיתות אנשים מכל אורחות החיים לבצע מסעות ירי קטלניים בבתים, במקומות העבודה ובבתי הספר שלה. ואז יש את העניין של מה הם עשויים לעולל לעצמם.
Ever since I was a little kid, I always loved the military. I loved the Army, and I think I always knew that I wanted to, join. I just said, I wanted to go and experience it, and just to serve my country. And then I went to the recruiter station. I said I want to jump out of airplanes and ride motorcycles. And right then they said, "We got a job for you," But I did it, and it was good. It was right after combat. So, you know, I started getting these dreams and flashbacks and all that stuff, and then, you know, kind of like big anxiety and all that stuff. And I went to my doc, and they said, yeah, we got to get you some meds, you know, and they gave me them, and, you know, that was it. When you first start taking it, you feel great. Whoa. And then it just like, it's like you get immune to it, and then, oh, let's take a higher dose. Let's take a higher dose.
In my experience, I didn't see anything helping at all. I felt like it was making everything worse.
I gained like, how many, like 40 pounds taking the meds. We looked it up, and that one med, I don't remember what it was called, but it said it acted like you had like 1,500 calories every pill you took, and I had to take it 3 times a day.
If he missed a dose, then the whole family would know, the whole house would be kind of on edge because you couldn't talk to him. He would snap.
You take your meds and you can just start feeling it going down, and then you're just like, bam, and you're a zombie, you know?
It almost seemed like he just didn't care about life anymore. He wasn't himself.
My body was breaking down, and my wife, she's all into herbs, and she's saying this isn't right. And then one I was all fucking drunk, and you know, the meds, just taking that shit, and I just said, fuck it, I'm done. And I took my pistol and fucking put it in my mouth, and she opened up the door. I fucking took it, and I said, I was like, fuck it. I said, we gotta fucking do something, you know? And this shit just didn't work, you know? And
I had to literally grab the weapon away from him because it probably would have happened.
So I said, fuck it, I'm stopping. You know, I'm stopping taking all this shit. It's killing me. You know, it's gonna kill me, it's gonna kill my wife, you know?
That was the straw that broke the camel's back. It wasn't working, and something had to be done. I didn't want to lose my husband. I didn't want him to kill himself, and I didn't want to be killed as well in the process.
I knew I wasn't me, you know? It was the drug that was doing it, and I knew I had to change or I'd be dead. And that's why I changed it.
בצבא יש בעיה עצומה של התאבדות. מאז 2002 מספר המתאבדים בצבא כמעט הוכפל.
The suicide rate has really been going out the roof here lately with our military members, both while they're still in and once they return back to the States. I would move from base to base to base, and I'd be on different missions at different times. And one minute I'm on a base and I'm having lunch, and I'm being asked, hey, did you hear about those 3 guys, those 3 soldiers who committed suicide?
It was a black eye on Fort Bliss. Soldiers were dying left and right. Preventable deaths, we're talking suicides, we're talking about these soldiers getting in their cars going, or motorcycles going 150 miles an hour and, you know, hitting a median, family violence. It really spiraled out of control.
ועם כל מה שמתרחש, הפסיכיאטרים ממשיכים לספק תרופות בכמויות עצומות. תרופות שידוע שהן מביאות לעלייה במקרי האלימות ובמחשבות אובדניות.
My psychiatrist at the time had issued me a recommended gabapentin. And I took one, and I think within 30 minutes I had thoughts of suicide.
They started me on a really low dose to build it in my system, but even the low dose, I was still feeling side effects of suicide, depression, anxiety.
I did notice that there was a lot of times that I thought, you know, that it would just be better to be dead than to keep living like that. And I look back on it now and I do realize that it was the meds.
כן, יכולות להיות סיבות להתאבדויות בצבא של היום שלא קשורות לתרופות הפסיכיאטריות. אבל יהיה זה מטומטם להתעלם מהשפעת התרופות. שאל את החיילים שהיו בשטח.
I was military police, actively working as a police officer on the military installation. And in 1 week, I went to about 8 or 9 suicide attempts where the person either overdosed or, said that he was going to kill himself, something like that. And 1 for 1, every single person was on psychiatric drugs.
Because of my role as a criminal investigator, I didn't witness the soldiers while they were taking psychiatric drugs. All I got to see was after the suicide or after the death, and then the reports come out. We'd get called pretty often to investigate. We would have an autopsy performed and would include a toxicological exam, which would determine any drugs in the system, and usually there was some type of drug. A lot of them were taking some sort of medication for depression or anxiety. There were a lot of suicides happening in the military, overseas in theater and back in the States.
בין 2009 ל-2012 יותר חיילים אמריקאים מתו מהתאבדויות מאשר מתאונות דרכים, מחלות לב, סרטן ורצח. שר ההגנה של ארצות הברית קרא לזה מגפה. אז כן, זאת בעיה. חלק טוענים שזה בגלל מתח נפשי ממלחמה, אבל 85% ממקרי ההתאבדות בצבא אפילו לא ראו קרב מימיהם, ו-52% מעולם לא נשלחו לקרב. בינתיים, איש אינו מפקפק בכישורים של הפסיכיאטרים הצבאיים. והתוצאה היא ניסיונות התאבדות כמו זה.
My son joined the army. He wanted to make a career and become something. He was still sweet and more normal when he came back from Iraq, even though he had, nervousness in crowds and PTSD. He was not different in personality as far as, to that degree like what we saw later on the drugs.
And so when Michael said, hey, I'm having anxiety issues, I said, you need to go tell them. Well, and that's what really began his journey. That was the worst step, in my opinion, that we could have ever done. It started off with 1 drug and went to 2. With each successive symptom that he got a new drug.
And we noticed that he started to go down in personality. It wasn't our son anymore. It was, anger, slurred speech.
It was surreal because the person I was talking to wasn't even my son. He was unsure of himself. He didn't have any will to do anything. At one point, he had stopped brushing his teeth, drinking water, eating, because he didn't care. He didn't even know that he was that way.
And I researched and discovered that our soldiers were being medicated and that they were committing suicide from it. So I printed all my research out and I handed it to my husband. And I said to my husband, tell me what you think of all this research. And he came back to me and said, if my calculations are correct, there's a pattern here that matches our son's behavior. And if my calculations are correct, he's just about ready to commit suicide. I was in the dollar store and he called me and said, I don't want to upset you, but I want you to know Michael's okay, but he tried to kill himself. And he put 2 IVs in his arms and he bled out in the bathtub and he was drawing in his blood on the walls. He didn't even know he was committing suicide.
So his cognizance, his reason was already usurped by these pills. They take away who you are. And he wasn't the same.
We had the hospital check him and they found at least 9 drugs in his system. And they're just the ones they tested for.
They were giving my son drugs that had black box warnings, said, if you're under 25 and you're taking this pill, your risk of suicide is going up 50%. Risk of suicide. But they were still giving him the pills.
What he went through was so horrific, it's hard for him to talk about. But he allows us to speak because he wants to save his comrades. He wants to save others who are going through the same thing, who are being drugged with lethal cocktails.
Me speaking as Michael, knowing the things that he has said to others, he would say, stay away from the pills. It's a dead end.
הפסיכיאטרים טוענים שהתרופות שלהם מצילות חיים, אבל רק לעתים רחוקות הם דנים בסיכון החמור של התאבדות. למה לא? בגלל ההזהרות במסגרת השחורה לגילאי 18 עד 24? זה טווח הגילאים של כמעט חצי מהחיילים הלוחמים בצבא האמריקאי. ועם זאת, השימוש בתרופות הפסיכיאטריות בצבא ארצות הברית הרקיע ל-76% מ-2001. כולל נוגדי דיכאון שפסיכיאטרים מספקים לחיילים כדי למנוע התאבדות.
There's no evidence that drugging stops suicide. The reason I'm saying this is because it is alleged that if somebody is suicidal, you should medicate them. Except there's no evidence that medicating somebody who is suicidal is going to prevent suicide. There's substantial evidence that many drugs actually promote suicide.
And last year, within the DoD, there were 349 suicides among military personnel. That's almost one a day, literally one a day.
יותר מקרי התאבדות ממספר ההרוגים במלחמה, והצבא מאוד מודאג.
In fact, in 2009, Fort Campbell, Kentucky was actually closed down by the base commander for a time because they were having just an inordinate number of suicides.
Suicides on Fort Campbell have to stop now.
The last I heard, the VA was getting close to 450 calls a day to their suicide hotline, which they set up years ago to handle the amount of veterans that have suicidal thoughts on a daily basis. 450 calls a day.
זאת בעיה שהדהדה בכל מסדרונות הממשלה.
One of the biggest concerns I have about the military is the inordinate number of suicides that have taken place among active duty and those who've left the military.
3 years ago, I got Congress to hold hearings to examine the relationship between suicide and increased use of medications, and there was a direct parallel. The amount of suicides were increasing proportionate to the amount of medications being introduced.
So, do antidepressants cause suicide? Of course they do.
So, don't blame the soldiers. Don't blame the military as a whole. Blame the corruption of the military by the psychiatric industry that is peddling false, dangerous medicine, that is peddling a kind of modern-day quackery, calling it treatment, but delivering suicide.
וכמה שזה נורא לחיילים בשירות הפעיל, למשוחררים זה נורא אף יותר. הם הורגים את עצמם בקצב של 22 ליום, אחד כל 65 דקות. אבל האם הפסיכיאטרים אפילו שוקלים להפסיק את הסימום? לא. במקום, הם מנהלים מתקפה כוללת.
I was a very highly functioning non-commissioned officer. I was a platoon sergeant at the time. I was kind of always being groomed for that next rank. I was getting sent to the right schools, had the support of my chain of command. Things were going really good. After I witnessed this traumatic event on my last deployment in Iraq, that's when the medications really started coming. I mean, full force. And like I said before, before I knew it, I was on 9 to 12 different kind of medications. And when I was going through the separation process in the Army, I had to get some physicals and evaluations from outside people. These professionals would see my records come up on the screen and the amount of medications that I was put on throughout my time in the Army, but especially the last couple of years, and they would literally gasp. And they were shocked at the amount of drugs, the high doses of these drugs. It was like a 6-page rap sheet.
עם כל התגובות השונות שיש לגופך מלקיחת התרופות הפסיכיאטריות, איך הפסיכיאטרים מבטלים תופעת לוואי שנגרמה מהתרופה שהם בעצמם נתנו לך? הם לא מפסיקים לך את התרופות, או שהם יעלו את המינון שיכול לגרום לעוד תופעות לוואי, או שהם יוסיפו תרופה חדשה שתוסיף אפילו עוד תופעות לוואי, ועוד אחת, ועוד אחת.
It was clear right away that they really had no idea what anything that they were giving me was really going to do. They said, this drug may not work. You may need a different one. This one may need a higher dose. This one may need a lower dose.
There was friends of mine that I saw had 2, 3, 4 pills that they had to take daily.
You find soldiers that are on dozens of medications. And when I say, 7 to 9 drugs at one point, I'd say that was very average. I've heard as high as 14.
I know of some troops, personally, who were given up to 20 different drugs.
It's kind of depressing if you look at the number of medications that I've been on. It's very thick. It makes up a large portion of my medical file with the Veterans Administration.
And a lot of people were on not only psychiatric drugs, but drugs for their injuries. And the combination made them different. They weren't the same people.
They're mixing amphetamines with painkillers and antidepressants and sleeping pills. I mean, even to the unlearned, that sounds insane.
דרך הפעולה הזו כל כך שכיחה שאפילו נתנו לזה שם, טיפול רב תרופתי. והנה עובדה לא ידועה. רבות מהתרופות הללו לא נוסו באף שילוב. אז אלה שלוקחים את התרופות הם בעצם שפני ניסיון.
The danger escalates with every increase in dose and every increase in the number of medications.
I have watched my clients who have been prescribed psychotropic drugs, sometimes a cocktail, often a cocktail, sometimes a single drug, and they are grievously changed.
If they were experiencing an adverse effect, how would they know which drug it was? Was it the antipsychotic? Who knows? Was it the antidepressant? Was it a combination? These guys don't know. All they know is they're supposed to take these because their doctor said they'll be better. And in fact, they only got worse.
And the problem is that there's no attention to the detail of what happens to these troops that are placed on them. There's no follow-up. They're simply placed on them, given a great big huge supply of them, and they're sent out to fight.
למעשה, לכמה חיילים אמריקאים ניתנת בדרך כלל אספקה של תרופות פסיכיאטריות עד ל-180 יום כשהם יוצאים לחזית. אין פיקוח, אין הגבלות. הם לוקחים אותם מתי שבא להם.
And what happens to it when they go into combat? Are they sharing with their friends? Sure they are. That's why I've been told by social workers, corpsmen, medics, that 90% of the troops in combat have at one time or other taken some type of psychiatric medication.
It's just a grand, crazy, insane pharmaceutical roulette that's being conducted at the expense of our nation's sons and daughters, really.
My husband never did drugs, nothing, never did anything. And I dated him 5 years before I married him. And he never did anything like that. And then when he was in Afghanistan, the psychiatrist over there started giving him the medications for depression and, of course, the pain that he was in because he had been hit. And the first time he got hit, they just started drugging him up. And the second time he was hit is when they sent him home to me. And 2 weeks after him being home, the violence was so incredible. I told him that we needed counseling or we just needed to get a divorce because I couldn't live in the abuse that I had just gone through because my husband never treated me that way. Needless to say, at that point, I didn't realize that these drugs were affecting him. At one point in time, my husband was on 21 drugs, 21 at one time. I mean, and it was craziness. This is not, I don't even know who this person is that I lived with. I've tried to get him help right from the beginning with the drugs, and they're refusing him any help. They just keep continuing to give him the drugs, and he's not getting any treatment. His physical needs are not being met, and he's continuing to deteriorate on a daily basis. The whites of his eyes are now yellow. They have a yellow tint to them. His skin color is green and gray. And this happens often. And we do have the fear that we will wake up in the morning and he's going to die. Every day we live that every day. His daughter lives that every day. I live that every day. Is today the day that he's going to die? Is today the day I'm going to get the call? They need to give me my husband's life back, is what they need to do. They need to take him off the drugs so that he can think. He can't think. He doesn't know.
המציאות הנוראית היא שברגע שמישהו לוקח את התרופות הללו, הגמילה מהן היא גיהנום. לחלקן אתה יכול להתמכר תוך שבועיים בלבד.
Now we have soldiers coming back from the battlefield and they're addicted to psychotropic medications and they have a detox reaction back in civilian life and they begin to exhibit the side effects for which they were being pre-medicated. So they become depressed, they become suicidal.
Not only is it dangerous to be on these drugs, it's also very dangerous to come off of them. In fact, in many cases, the suicides happen immediately after someone stops taking an antidepressant drug. So if you do that, make sure you do it in a way where you have medical supervision and you have a support system in place so you can get off of those drugs safely.
לנסות להיגמל מתרופות פסיכיאטריות לבד, במיוחד בבת אחת, מאוד מסוכן, בגלל שאתה עלול להתנסות בתופעות לוואי איומות.
I have an anxiety, I'm perspiring, I just don't know what to do.
הפסיכיאטרים יגידו לך שמחלת הנפש שלך חזרה ושאתה צריך לחזור לקחת תרופות. זה לא נכון. זהו חלק מהגמילה, כמו מכל סם רחוב.
The doctor did not tell me if I did come straight off of these that there would be a worse effect. I didn't know that. So when I did come off it, I fell harder.
These are actually addictive drugs, you know, and I didn't know how to act without them.
The withdrawal process is rough. And one of the things that I experienced is all these emotions, all these feelings, all these trauma, all this sadness that wasn't being dealt with, wasn't being cared for. It was just being medicated. When I got off all those drugs, it was like a floodgate.
Even though you come off those pills, there's a period of time for, I think, a long, long time that stuff is coming out of your system. You know, and sometimes you think that life would be better if you were dead.
זה מזעזע כמה חיילים חוזרים הביתה כשהם מכורים לתרופות פסיכיאטריות. חקירה של צבא ארצות הברית גילתה של-35% מהחיילים הנמצאים ביחידת השיקום יש בעיה עם התרופות שניתנו להם במרשם. ולעיתים קרובות ההתמכרות היא לא זמנית, אלא לכל החיים. אבל זה יכול להיות יותר גרוע. בגלל שלפעמים התרופות הללו יכולות להיות קטלניות, מכות במהירות ובלי כל הזרה.
Gunnery Sergeant Chris Bacchus survived the assault on Baghdad, a deployment to Afghanistan, and a second tour in Iraq.
What specifically killed your brother?
He died because he mixed narcotic drugs. Whenever he had an issue with them, they would increase either the dosage or the potency of the individual pill.
A bomb couldn't kill this Marine, but a bottle did.
בגוף של קריס בקוס היו שני סוגים של תרופות נוגדות דיכאון, שני אופיאטים וסם נוגד חרדה בשם אטיבן. בזירת ההתרחשות נמצאו 27 מרשמים שונים, רובם ניתנו לו לאחרונה. בבדיקה שלאחר המוות נמצא שהוא מת מאינטראקציה של הסמים, משהו שכל רופא כשיר יכול היה לחזות. המקרה של קריס בקוס אינו שונה ממאות מקרים אחרים, במרחק של 700 קילומטר בלבד משם, סטן ושירלי ווייט חגגו את חזרתו הפתוחה של בנם משדה הקרב. רבת אנדרו ווייט בן ה-23 מחיל הנחתים. הם ידעו מעט מאוד על מה שעומד לקרות כשהוא הלך לקבל עזרה בבית החולים המקומי ליוצאי צבא, שם הוא הובחן ואז סומם.
Andrew's behavior really started to deteriorate. We saw more and more withdrawal. We saw anger issues. At one point, he slept for 2 or 3 days at a time.
The psychiatrist, their solution to his deteriorating condition was to increase his medications or to change the medications.
ב-12 בפברואר 2008 רבת ווייט מת בשנתו. הוא אפילו לא זז. פשוט מת.
The coroner's report said it was an intoxication of these drugs. Did not mention, but his heart stopped beating.
Andrew being 23, being very healthy, not having any major issues, you shouldn't die in bed.
הוא היה אחד מבין 4 חיילים משוחררים ממערב וירג'יניה, כולם בשנות ה-20 לחייהם, שמתו בשנתם בהפרש של מספר חודשים אחד מהשני. זה הצריך חקירה עיקשת של נוירולוג מסן דייגו כדי למצוא את הסיבה לכך.
I tried to understand how they could have died, what the mode, the mechanism of death could have been. And these dead in an undisturbed bed were cardiac. Suddenly the heart stops for some reason.
כשהוא עוקב אחר כל פיסת מידע, הוא גילה שכל אחד מהם מובחן עם PTSD, וכל אחד מהם לקח את אותו קוקטייל חזק של תרופות פסיכיאטריות.
Came across literature on the antipsychotics, and they said that the antipsychotics have a particular danger. They can stop the heart suddenly. And here these veterans, all 3 were on a combination of drugs which can cause or lead to sudden cardiac death. Might this not be the tip of an iceberg? Might there be others? And to make a long story short, that list grew to 250, 300, and today it is 351 probable cardiac deaths. The risk of sudden cardiac death makes those drugs truly unfit for human consumption, and yet they're being used like jelly beans in the military.
Yeah, we're watching me here, Devil Dog.
מקרה נוסף של מוות מדום לב הוא רב טוראי צ'אד אוליגשלגר, בן ה-21.
Are you getting that? It's machine gun fire. We don't know where it's coming from. But no worries. We have our sandbag structures. Carry on.
Chad was hilarious. You know, super smart. Super smart.
He was a lot of fun. You know, he played sports, you know, all of that. Like any normal kid was, outdoors all the time.
He was willing to make friends and talk to everybody. So that's kind of, you know, what caught my eye in the beginning as well. So he was just fun to be around.
This Native American has no comment.
Well, he told me the reason why he wanted to join the military was that if he went, then maybe his children wouldn't have to go.
He really felt like it was his duty as a citizen to participate.
When he came back, we realized he was different. He had asked his commander that, you know, he wanted to seek counseling. He needed some help because he was having problems dealing with what he had done over there and what he saw on that first tour.
All right, the reason I'm down here and not up there is because as soon as the IED went off, we were talking about a possible trigger man. We don't know where they are because we never know where they are.
Just all kind of saw like, okay, they're gonna give you some medication. You're gonna, you know, see a psychiatrist for a little bit, talk it out, things will get better. We were so naive.
When he was on the drugs, he seemed like he was just doped up all the time. He was disoriented.
It literally turned him into a walking zombie. I mean, after he would take that, and, you know, and he was real adamant about making sure he took his medication on time.
It just felt like the medication made him forget what he was doing, made him forget some things that had happened in the past. We'd be talking about stories and he wouldn't believe what I was telling him.
And he'd take Seroquel and then 10 minutes later be going back to his pill bottle and say, well, I gotta take my medication. And it's like, you just took it.
He wasn't in control, I felt like, in the end. He just really didn't know what he was doing. He wasn't going to work when he was supposed to. He said he would just sleep in his room.
We're gonna pause for a second due to malfunctions and technical difficulties.
I got the knock on the door at 11 o'clock at night. But when I heard the knock on the door, I knew what it was.
They had found Chad. And my thought was, okay, great, where is he? Where's his little shit? You know, I hadn't heard from him. And he said that he was at the barracks. I said, okay, is something wrong? Can I go see him? And he said that they found him in his room, that he was dead on the floor. They didn't know how long he'd been there, that he was already gone, and I couldn't see him. I couldn't even get on base. All I could think of was that he was alone in that room by himself, that he was supposed to be safe.
It was harder for us because we always expected, if he's in the military, he's in the Marines, we kind of expected that if he were to die, he was going to die when he was out on deployment. You know, he was going to die, you know, killed in action, something. We didn't expect him to come home and die.
I had a doctor at Texas A&M University read the autopsy and then said that the levels of the meds in there were not excessive. They were in line with what was prescribed.
Nothing was out of range of dosage, but they looked at it and they said, how come he's taking, 7 of them? It's a lot. And the doctor looked right at me and said, they killed him.
I blame the psychiatrists and I blame the doctors for prescribing those pills. Those are the ones that never checked up on him and let him walk out with all the other pills. Didn't take any of the pills away, just kept giving him more pills. And they're the ones.
Good morning, and hoorah.
פסיכיאטרים מגדירים את מקרי המוות הללו בתור תאונות של מנת יתר, אבל בואו נהיה מציאותיים. זה גובל ברצח ברשלנות. וכשהחיילים שלנו מתים אחד אחר השני מכמויות הקוקטיילים הקטלניים הללו שניתנות להם במרשם, אתה בטח תוהה האם בכלל אכפת לפסיכיאטרים לגלות מדוע. זה מספיק נורא שחיילים נהרגים, אבל לקיחת הסמים הזו משפיעה הרבה יותר מאשר הקורבנות עצמם. היא גם יכולה להשפיע על חייהם של אלו שהם הכי אוהבים.
I was with the 101st Airborne Division. I was assigned to them doing gun truck and convoy security, Operation Iraqi Freedom. I came out as a captain. I've got a total of 26 months in combat. When I came out, returned home from Operation Iraqi Freedom, anyone that marked that they had seen combat or had seen someone killed or had participated in combat operations directly, it was mandatory that you went to mental health. I myself was prescribed Prozac, Depakote, and at one time Zoloft. One night, and I'll never forget this as long as I live. One night I had laid down and I'd taken my pills and I took a shot of Jack Daniels. At that time I had my children staying with me. So I didn't get drunk or anything like that, didn't drink overly heavy, and for some reason I decided to sleep on the couch this time. And I can remember opening my eyes and not being able to move my arms and my legs and literally feeling like I was choking to death. And my son, who was 13 at the time, he came in. Obviously I was making some noises and he shook me so hard that I fell off of the couch. and that kind of woke me up. But literally, I felt like I was dying. And I can't help to think if my son wasn't there to wake me up, would I have been a statistic? Maybe.
חייל בשירות פעיל או חייל משוחרר הלוקח תרופות יכול להשפיע באופן שלילי על כל משפחתו.
What we're seeing is that now this label of being broken and disordered is not only being utilized with our troops, but it's now also extended with their families.
You hear stories about these young children that are living with a deployed mommy or a daddy who just can't handle the deployments. So what happens is these troops that were deployed come home, whether or not they saw combat doesn't matter. They're still being forced to take a subjective questionnaire, psychiatric questionnaire, and based off of the results are getting told to do these drugs. And when they take the drugs, they become somebody that's different than what that child remembered them to be. Now that child has to deal with coping in a way that is very different than what they had to deal with when the parent was initially home. That child can't handle it. So what happens? Mom and dad says the child needs to go see somebody for help. Child goes seeks help. Child gets the same drugs that mommy and daddy's on.
Instead of dealing with the problem the right way, it's a lot easier to give a kid a pill, which ultimately destroys that young mind and ultimately erases somebody from society when that child commits suicide.
My youngest son, Daniel, was a very funny, a little prankster with lots of friends in the neighborhood. He was loved by his teachers at school.
We would go out fishing or hunting or just playing around out in the woods. So were able to spend quite a bit of time together whenever I wasn't gone on training or deployment for the Army.
Daniel began having trouble sleeping very shortly after he left, and he was worried that his dad wouldn't come home. He was worried that his dad was going to get killed. And we saw the psychiatrist for 10 or 15 minutes, and he prescribed something to help him sleep, and also Celexa.
Well, when she started telling me about the medications, I was very concerned. Overall, it seemed to me that, the situation was continuing to progress and he was just getting worse.
My husband came home from Iraq 3 months early because of my concerns.
I was very concerned at the personality change to becoming much more withdrawn and sad and depressed.
He was having some bizarre behavior. He began cutting himself at school, and he began having hallucinations.
Well, he never had any of those behaviors before being put on the drugs.
We were all here at the house. He was out of our sight for 10 or 15 minutes, and he had snuck in and went and he'd gone into his room, and I sent James to go find Daniel to help me in the yard. And he did.
What was your emergency?
We need an ambulance.
What's going on?
My little brother hung himself.
Okay. What's his name?
Daniel Rains. My mom is performing CPR right now.
Okay, let me transfer you. Don't hang up.
He was an innocent little boy who was just worried about his dad, who prayed every night that his dad would be safe, and that his dad would come home, and that angels would protect him. But there wasn't anybody to protect my son. Psychiatry and the military took our youngest son from us and ruined our family.
ילדים הם יעד רציני עבור הפסיכיאטרים. ל1.9 מיליון מהם יש הורה המשרת בצבא, ולמיליון יש הורה שהיה בשדות הקרב. וכשאתה ילד קטן הדואג לאבא או לאמא, אתה הופך לציד חוקי.
The numbers of children who have been put on drugs within the military TRICARE system is astounding. You know, it's just exploding. So it has an effect, a ripple effect on the entire family unit.
Now, today, we're finding out outpatient psychiatric treatment for children of deployed active duty service members has reached an all-time high at 2 million visits. How many drugs are these children being forced to take now?
מה שזה לא יהיה, זה הרבה. על פי מחקר שפורסם על ידי כתב העת של הפסיכיאטריה לילדים ולנוער, 91% מכלל הילדים הנפגשים עם פסיכיאטר לילדים יוצאים עם סמים פסיכיאטריים. האם באמת זה מה שאנו רוצים עבור הילדים שלנו? אתה חייב לתהות מדוע עם כל הכישלון הזה פסיכיאטרים ממשיכים לפגוע באנשים, לסמם אותם, למכר אותם, לגרום לאלימות ולהתאבדות. הסיבות הן מחפירות ביותר. הפסיכיאטרים אומרים שהפרעות כמו PTSD לא ניתנות לריפוי. במקום זאת, הם טוענים שצריך לשלוט בהן עם תרופות עד סוף ימיך. זו רפואה גרועה, אבל זה מצוין לחשבון הבנק.
Once you label somebody and you start medicating them, over the life of that person, it's going to cost the government about $1.5 million to provide these medications and treatment.
There's a lot of money to be made here. There's a lot of money to be made by the companies that are producing these drugs.
Profit is the only conceivable motive for all of these psychiatric drugs in the military.
Taxpayers are footing the bill for this travesty of medicine. These psychiatric drugs that promote suicides, you're paying for them.
אז מדוע הפסיכיאטרים מחלקים תרופות בכמויות כאלו? בגלל שהרבה יותר קל לסמם אנשים מאשר לעזור להם. ובגלל הפיצוץ הזה של סימום פסיכיאטרי, הפסיכיאטריה פיתחה יחסים קרובים מאוד עם חברות התרופות. הם יספרו לך הכל על זה. לרוע מזל, לאן שלא תסתכל, תמצא ניגוד אינטרסים כספי. לדוגמה, מת'יו פרידמן, פסיכיאטר והמנכ"ל של המרכז הלאומי ל-PTSD של המשרד לענייני חיילים משוחררים. לא רק שפרידמן הוא הדובר בתשלום ל3 חברות תרופות שונות, הוא גם חבר במועצות המנהלים של המועצה המדעית המייעצת לחברות התרופות המייצרות את פקסיל וזולופט. ונחש מה? אלו במקרה שתי התרופות הפסיכיאטריות היחידות שאושרו על ידי ממשלת ארצות הברית לטיפול ב-PTSD. ויש את דוקטור אלספת קמרון ריצ'י, שהייתה עד לא מזמן הפסיכיאטרית הראשית של צבא ארצות הברית. היא היללה את התרופה האנטי-פסיכוטית סרקוול כמאוד יעילה בטיפול בחרדות ופציעותי לילה הקשורים לקרבות. לא רק שסרקוול לחלוטין לא מאושרת למטרה הזו, היא קשורה למוות פתאומי מדום לב. חיילים קוראים לה סרוקיל, ברחוב היא נקראת בייבי הרואין. באותה שנה ריצ'י כיכבה בשידור חדשות באינטרנט שמומן בחלקו על ידי היצרנית של סרקוול, שם היא המשיכה לדחוף את השימוש בתרופות פסיכיאטריות בשדה הקרב.
Of course, I'm a psychiatrist, so I tend to think of psychiatric medications, and we treat soldiers with medications, with cognitive behavioral therapy, and other sophisticated treatments on the battlefield.
ולבסוף, הפסיכיאטר והתת-אלוף לשעבר סטיבן זינקיס. כשהוא היה בצבא, הוא דחף חזק לביצוע תכוף של סריקה פסיכיאטרית לחיילים. כמה שיותר, יותר טוב. היום, הצבא סורק את חייליו 5 פעמים, כולל חיוב סריקה פסיכיאטרית כשהם חוזרים הביתה מהקרב, כולל סריקת מעקב 6 חודשים מאוחר יותר. וסריקות אלה מלאות בניגודי אינטרסים. הפיתוח של שאלון אחד שהומלץ על ידי קצין הרפואה הראשי מומן על ידי פייזר, היצרנית של נוגד הדיכאון זולופט. תוכנית סריקה נוספת לאנשי צבא ומשפחותיהם מנוהלת על ידי קבוצה שקיבלה מיליוני דולרים מ8 חברות תרופות שונות. אבל זינקיס רוצה לקבל מהעוגה את החתיכה שלו. הוא עומד לקבל מיליונים בתור המנכ"ל של חברת ענק המוכרת מכשיר סריקה מוחית שהוא מתכוון להשתמש בו לאבחון של PTSD. השורה התחתונה, עם פסיכיאטריה מדובר רק בכסף, בהחלט לא בעזרה. ויחד עם זאת, במקום לתקן מערכת שבורה ולא יעילה שכזאת, המחלקה לענייני חיילים משוחררים של ארצות הברית שכרה לאחרונה 1,600 עובדי בריאות נפש נוספים, רק כדי לטפל בבעיות שהמקצוע הזה גרם להחמרתן.
If all we're doing when we get more mental health professionals is more of the same thing, but then it's a fool's errand.
ולחייל שהתגייס מתוך תחושת חובה ושירת בכבוד, זה מסתכם במילה אחת. בגידה.
One of the things I have the benefit of really is getting thousands of emails a week, whether it's from veterans or other people suffering from pharmaceutical damage. It's specifically veterans these days. We see an increase. We see people calling out and saying they feel betrayed.
They are very proud to serve, fight for their countries, protect, you know, the people back home, their loved ones. And I think all they ask for is to come home and be treated fairly, given answers and looked after. And they're not looked after. They're told, it's all in your head, it's mental, take the tablets, it'll cure, go away, and that's it. And I think that is betrayal. For a word to use for those people is an understatement.
It's the deepest betrayal of a human being to kill them while claiming you're treating them, to call it medicine and deliver death.
והכל כל כך מיותר. כי יש תקווה, והיא לא מערבת טיפול פסיכיאטרי. הסתכל מסביב, ולמרבה הצער תמצא עולם רווי בפסיכיאטריה. אבל ישנם פתרונות בטוחים, יעילים, שעובדים, וניתן למצוא אותם.
The main word for soldiers, and not only soldiers, but anybody suffering from any type of mental, so-called mental illness, is that there's hope. That there's hope out there, there's solutions out there, things are available for you to get your life back, to not have suicidal thoughts, to not end your life, and it does not include psychiatric drugs.
There is a way to solve this. It's to get rid of the drugs and start treating soldiers like human beings, not lab rats. That's the solution.
The vets who get over their war wounds do it on their own, do it with friends, do it with colleagues, do it in support groups. They're doing it separate and distinct from the medical interventions.
If you talk to lads, when they get together, they help one another, they support one another. They are aware of fellow feeling, fellow understanding. Psychiatrists, by having the opportunity to disrupt that process by using drugs, can often disrupt it rather than support it.
A soldier does need help. He needs care and love and friendship and, you know, whatever else is going to make him feel better personally, but he does not need psychotropic drugs.
טיפול רפואי אמיתי יתחיל עם בדיקה גופנית מלאה ומקיפה על ידי רופא כשיר שיבדוק כל פציעה או מחלה שיכולים להיות הגורם למצוקה הנפשית.
Every symptom should be investigated for physical origins, because if you don't do that, almost certainly someone who has a real physical symptom is being labeled as having a psychiatric symptom, which is false.
By making sure that we clear up any physical issues, we begin to make the soldier, the veteran, feel better. Once they begin to feel better, they feel better physically, they feel better emotionally, and they're able to deal with some of the issues relative to the traumas or the stress that they were under while in combat.
אם אתה לוקח תרופות פסיכיאטריות ורוצה להפסיק, דאג לעשות זאת תחת פיקוח של רופא כשיר.
Getting off the drugs is one of the best things that I've done, and because it's helped me out. It helped me be back being Mike Mezin, you know, and it really saved my life.
It's transformed my life, but at the same time, it's also made me look real hard at the damage that those drugs were doing me while I was on.
And it was
that type of incident that catalyzed my resolve to aborting the system that I was in and moving forward with a non-pharmaceutical approach, which has been phenomenally successful for me. I'm not the same person.
אבל ממש ברגע זה, הרבה מאוד חיילים נמצאים בסיכון גבוה מכיוון שפקדו עליהם לקחת תרופות פסיכיאטריות. לכן מאוד חשוב שתדע את הזכויות שלך.
There is an obligation for the service to take care of our sons and daughters that are sacrificing themselves and giving an oath to defend the Constitution with their life. I mean, that's a big deal. The command may say you have to go to see a psychiatrist because we believe you to be unstable. So does he have to show up for the appointment? The answer is yes. However, once you go into that therapist's office, you are not required to participate in that treatment. So on occasion, I have people that call me and ask me, can I refuse this or can I refuse that? And I say, absolutely.
בבסיסה של הזכות לסירוב ישנה הזכות החשובה ביותר מכל. הסכמה מדעת. הסכמה מדעת אומרת שיש לך את הזכות להיות מיודע מראש על כל הסיכונים והיתרונות של הטיפול הפסיכיאטרי המוצע, אפשרויות טיפול חלופיות והאפשרות לסרב לטיפול.
Do active duty and military have a right to informed consent? Absolutely. But these soldiers, sailors, Marines are not informed as to all of the consequences of these medications. Because if you were truly informed as to the consequences of taking these drugs, would you really take them? And the answer is most likely no.
הסכמה מדעת היא רק אחת מהזכויות הרבות שיש לך על פי התקנון של צבא ארצות הברית. גם בארצות רבות אחרות יש את הזכות להסכמה מדעת, אבל עליך לדרוש זאת. הצטרף לפעילות וספר לאחרים על הזכויות הללו. ניצולים אמיצים רבים מהפסיכיאטריה הצבאית, מהמשפחות שלהם מרימים קול, והעזרה שלך יכולה להועיל.
I don't want another family to experience what we've experienced. Unfortunately, that's happening.
This is an outrage. What's going on here? Are these young people just guinea pigs? Apparently so. My daughter was a guinea pig. And she's gone.
One of Tony's last things, he always told me, just keep speaking up, Mom. Even if you only help one person, just keep speaking up.
My goal is not just to tell Anthony's story, but I feel it's a story that's not unique. It's something that's happening to so many of our troops.
As an advocate for my son and an advocate for wounded veterans across the country, our group that I work with, we're trying to make a change in that direction.
So we made it our mission that we're going to tell everybody we can and have the website have as much information that we can.
We've got to get the word out to our soldiers. Don't take these drugs. Don't take these drugs. It's the beginning of the end.
נדרשות פעולות מיידיות, לא רק בארצות הברית, אבל בכל העולם. ב-2012 התאבדו יותר חיילים וחיילים משוחררים בריטים מאשר נהרגו בקרב. אותו הדבר בצבא אוסטרליה הקטן יחסית במהלך העשור האחרון. 20% ממקרי המוות של חיילים גרמנים מחוץ לגרמניה היו מהתאבדויות. ובצבא הרוסי שיעור מקרי ההתאבדות גבוה ב-65% מאשר ברחבי המדינה כולה.
So, what is the solution? Get rid of psychiatry and mental health. Don't leave them in charge.
Mental health will not improve until psychiatrists are no longer in charge of it.
I truly believe that they are destroying our military.
The battlefield is safer than psychiatry. Do you understand that? Statistically, you are less likely to be shot by an enemy than to be killed by a pharmaceutical drug. That's the truth about psychiatry.
ויחד עם זאת, השפעת הפסיכיאטריה עברה את גבולות הצבא. בדיוק כפי שג'יי האריס תכנן. טיפול פסיכיאטרי שנוסע וקודם בשורות הצבא גולש לכל החורים והסדקים של החיים האזרחיים. הפסיכיאטריה היום היא תעשייה בינלאומית בשווי של $330 מיליארד בשנה. היא הבטיחה עזרה, היא מספקת כאב, נזק ומוות. האויב הסמוי נחשף עכשיו. מה שיקרה עכשיו תלוי בכל אחד מאיתנו. יש לך את העובדות. השב מלחמה.